Welcome to Directionally Correct, a P1's podcast with Cole and Scott. Today's guest, Michael Hutchins, Principal Product Manager at AWS.
Thanks to our sponsors, OneModel. OneModel helps people leaders at large organizations make consistently brilliant talent decisions by unlocking the analytical value of the data dispersed across your business. OneModel's people analytics platform takes all of the heavy lifting out of data extraction, cleansing, modeling, analytics, and reporting of enterprise workforce data. OneModel pioneered people data orchestration and has perfected the ethical use of AI and data science for leaders who need transparent and explainable decision support systems. HR and business teams trust its accurate reports, analyses, and storytelling capabilities. Data scientists, engineers, and people analytics professionals love the combination of governance and flexibility that no other workforce insights platform can provide. To learn more, book a demo at onemodel.co/directionallycorrect. All opinions are our own and do not reflect those of any other organization.
But I mean, the amount of people that are on SSRIs is like staggering. The amount of people are just walking around medicated.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, I'm probably making this up. This is directionally correct. But I think it's like 1 in 5 people now, or maybe even more than that, isn't it?
I mean, like, I don't know. Here, let's see. Like, approximately 13% of adults in the U.S. report using antidepressants between 2015 and 2018. Medication reaching, especially in women, where nearly 18% of women. So, I mean, like, you're pretty close. You're pretty close there.
That's insane. You know, like, I mean, 1 in 5 people.
I mean, the insane thing is like the other 80% are just going around unmedicated.
Yeah.
They're just out there in the wild.
I see sometimes every so often, you know, people in the psychology community will talk about like how there's like a wellness crisis. And I think that's really what they're talking about is like, you know, what's wrong with everything if so many people are, you know, feeling this bad. Or maybe it's like a crisis of abundance or something, like maybe in late stage modernity, you know, because there's not like starvation or, you know, people, you know, dying because of, you know, toxoplasmosis or whatever. Maybe that's why people get more depressed. I don't know.
I think that there's definitely something to that. People need meaning and purpose from their life, and they need something to do. Like if you wake up and the first thing you do is like check social media and like everything that your friend's doing is like a honeymoon in the Cinque Terre in Italy, or you know your other friend is now having their baby, or you know whatever's going on, and you live your life like I'm just like laying on the couch scrolling. Like of course you're gonna feel awful. Hutch, what's up, buddy?
Hey guys. Hey.
Hutch, you look like you lay on the couch scrolling a lot. Am I right about
that? You know, you wouldn't be wrong. It just depends on the day, I guess.
I'm just giving you a hard time. We've never met, and I'm just like coming out hard. I'm sorry, man.
I'd like to do some couch scrolling right now if I'm being totally honest with you. It's
you having a hard
Friday
week
after all. Yeah,
it's probably like a derogatory term, but like I see Hutch and myself as like personality hires in the organization. Whenever Hutch comes around, like the whole mood of the office is different because like we'll actually talk to people.
Yeah, what do they call that, mascot? Are you guys mascots? You know, you're like
I prefer the term connector, maybe.
Yeah. What's the like network IO psychology term, Scott? There's got to be one. You've got to have one.
Let's see. In this case, you know, high eigenvector, perhaps bridges, high out degree. That's another sort of just term there.
Yeah, you know what? High out degree. That's got to be it. That's what.
It kind of is because like whenever Hutch is in the office, I can sense it. Like he's like, oh, there's like a little like pull around Hutch.
You've got the Riz. You got the.
He's got the Riz.
Yeah, the kids call it. I guess. Hey, and I got this mic. Does the mic sound good? I'll show you.
Sounded great.
I got this thing. Not for this podcast. Y'all are not that special, but I've had it for a while and I just never unboxed it. Actually, you know what? You are that special.
We are not that special. I agree, Hutch.
Gentlemen.
Well, I mean, you should start your own podcast, man.
I know.
You really ought to. You really ought to.
I got this intending to, and then I laid on the couch and scrolled too much.
What would your podcast be? What would you go after?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I don't really have particularly interesting things to discuss.
Me neither. I mean, come on.
So maybe it'd probably be like a history-based deal, like kind of like a drunk history, but not that drunk, I guess.
Okay.
Like marginally drunk.
Okay.
So would you do the kind where you talk to yourself? Would you do the kind where you have just a partner and you guys get drunk and you talk about history? Or would you do the kind where you bring like a historian on and get them drunk and talk about it?
Okay, so I'd be lying if I said I hadn't considered this. What I think would be ideal for me is it would typically be two of us, and we would pick a theme and we'd talk through these different time periods. And then at the end of each, let's call it a module, a series of discussions, we bring in someone who actually knows what they're talking about. And at that point, they could like tell us how wrong our shenanigans are, or just like on a cosmic scale incorrect we are regarding history. I don't know. That's my off the cuff plan.
You just reinterpret history. Why not? I mean, like,
yeah.
Who's to say?
ChatGPT reinterprets history all the time. Like, why can't I? You know,
that's like the perfect rebuttal to a historian in a debate. Who's to say? I mean,
who's to say?
You can't recover from that.
We're both right.
Who is to say? You know, you just never know. I watch a few Ancient Aliens episodes, and all of a sudden I am a historian, and I won't be told otherwise, frankly.
Ancient Aliens is what I used to go to sleep by. It's got that perfect, like, sort of soothing sort of sound, and there's kind of like chatting about aliens, and just like put you right to sleep. It's great.
Yeah. What's that one host? It's the same guy, and so it could be Ancient Aliens or like 8 other shows on the History Channel, and it's the same narrator on all of them.
Well, I mean, they are ancient, so I guess it is history, right? You know,
such a loose definition.
Yeah,
I love that guy. The show would be nothing if it didn't have that dude with the hair, though, right? The guy's like, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
Yeah. No, he's great. He's great.
And I'm a kind of guy who likes aliens. I have never watched the History Channel Ancient Alien show.
Oh, you got to, man. It's got all the good information. Learn about the Anunnaki.
Yeah, it's Sumerian, Cole. It's Sumerian. Definitely ancient history.
Yeah, it's low over my head.
I mean, we wouldn't be where we are today without our ancient alien brothers, right?
Well, I was surprised when you guys sent out the links to the research articles and it wasn't about Babylonian text. And I was like, I don't know if I'm on the right podcast. Is this?
I'm still not sure if I'm on the right podcast.
I mean, we could adjust on the fly. I can like go on Google Scholar real quick.
I got double booked. I don't know with my Sumerian text podcast, but
are y'all Olympic guys? Ready for the Olympics? This pod's probably to come out right when the Olympics start, right?
Oh, is it?
I think so.
I knew they were sneaking up on us. I did not know when the Olympics started, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's a really good and probably easy question.
End of July, is it?
Yeah.
Where is it? Paris? Oh, yeah, because they're having that thing where everyone's going to poop in the river.
What?
Yeah.
Like,
is that a new event? Or is this like a demonstration by activists?
So they're going to have apparently all of the swimming events in the the River Seine in Paris, but apparently it's a garbage dump. There's all sorts of trash in there, and so the president of France and the mayor of Paris said, "Hey, we're all gonna go swimming in the river to show." Hey, it's fine. You know, it's like we've cleaned it up. We've spent billions of dollars on cleaning it up. And someone built an app of, depending on where you live, further away in France on the River Seine, the appropriate time to shit in the river so that the turds go to the area where the mayor and the president are going to be swimming at the exact same time. This has already passed, and they didn't actually swim for whatever reason. But this was a thing. This is a thing. I mean, we think about the French as like the most cultured people on the planet. No.
It was a protest of sorts, right? And like the French take protest to
Yeah,
the next
they hate
level.
the president. Yeah,
Unified defecation.
it's beautiful. It's a beautiful coming together of Frenchies. I don't know.
To
Let's
me,
see.
that's democracy. To me, that's democracy.
That's what the Enlightenment taught us. Yes. Wow.
Yes.
That's definitely voting. That's definitely voting.
Yeah.
What do they say?
Yeah.
Voting with your feet? No, that's voting with your sheet.
With your feces.
PC.
Yes. Yes.
July 25th is what it says, or 6. I need my glasses. I really can't read it, but it's coming up.
What is your favorite event, Scott?
Oh, Summer Olympics. Winter Olympics is easy. I love the long distance ice skating. You know, the what's it called? Just, you know what I mean? Like go to the big oval track and they do the ice skating. Summer Olympics. Give me a good javelin toss. Yeah. Ooh. Give me a good javelin. What about you guys?
Yeah, I watched this Netflix documentary about the 100-meter and 200-meter sprinters, both the males and the females. And man, it was so fascinating. And I was so intrigued by their personalities. Especially there's this one girl, her name's Sha'Carri Richardson. And she's just like one of these like really like, I don't know, just like really out there personalities. And I was like, I really am looking forward to seeing how she does, because it's just fascinating. And I mean, I was like thrilled by, remember when Usain Bolt was like, again, the fastest in history. And so I don't know, there's just something about being the fastest person on earth that's just really intriguing to me.
So such like a raw skill too. Like no one can. That's about as raw as you can get as far as like human ability, right?
There's no faking it.
But boxing too, right? I mean, like that's just very core sort of thing.
What about you, Hutch? What are you looking for?
You know, I like the track and field quite a bit. I like Olympic weightlifting. I always enjoy watching that. I think that's like a fascinatingly technical sport. But you know, the more I watch these different sports, they all are like extremely technical. So I can get into any of them if I spend the time to like figure out what are the techniques, like what do people do, like what makes them really good. They're all pretty interesting to me.
There's some comedian that essentially said that they ought to have one amateur trying to do the sport just for frame of reference of what it would be like.
They should.
Yeah. You know what that is? That's Bayesian statistics.
Yeah.
You've got your base rate.
if they can compete, is it really that hard of a sport? I mean, like, let's get real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're into weightlifting, right, Hutch? Like you do some powerlifting.
Yeah, I've never done the Olympic weightlifting. I've done, they have snatch and they have clean and jerk, and those are like your two primary movements.
Yeah.
And those are very technical, like I said. And I never had a coach. I never really tried to get into them. And so to me, despite picking things up and putting them down, watching Olympic weightlifting, it's magical to me. I don't understand the speed, and they do the slow-mo cam. So if y'all watch Olympic weightlifting, they always have the slow-mo cam, and so you have a movement where you bring the weight up and then you get underneath it very quickly.
Yeah.
Right. And when you watch that slow-mo cam, the slow-mo cam is at X speed, and yet they're dropping down at what looks like a normal speed because they're so agile. It's just incredible. And Cole, you haven't met me in person, but I wouldn't consider myself an agile person. And so that's another reason why I've never been to Olympic weights. I like to take my time, pick it up, put it down.
You're more of a waterfall guy than an agile guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I was thinking, I got another pun for you if you're ready for it.
I am, please.
I was never good at cleaning, ever.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no clean.
What's going on? I don't know this one.
It's like you doing the cleans like weightlifting, but also cleaning like around the house.
I distinctly remember in high school as a senior, I was on the soccer team, and we'd go to you have like a day where you had to go to the weight room and this sort of stuff. And we'd just essentially go hang out like in the back and like just chit chat. And the coach would be like, "Hey, Hines, why aren't you lifting weights?" Like, they're heavy, coach. I don't want no part of that.
It's a very logical response.
Yeah, they're heavy, man.
Yeah, they were an impediment, you know. I didn't
The
want them to
data,
get in my way.
Well, I don't think we've ever had like a true like data guy on the podcast. We've had obviously people that use data and this sort of stuff for people analytics, but Hutch has like worked himself into like a really cool position of being essentially what is it, architect. I don't even know how to describe what you do to get the data ready for everyone else.
It's like a data engineer. Is that what we're talking about?
well, I would say so. So the team I'm on, we do a little bit of everything, and so I can give you guys just a little bit of background on the work that I'm doing now. Um, so I'm on a people analytics team for Amazon Web Services, and we're primarily focused on understanding the people experience through data after someone gets hired, and then up to the point of alumni status, whether they're terminated or they move outside of AWS, what have you. And I do a little bit of everything. So I'm responsible for the overarching product vision for our team, and that's across dashboards and nudges and um, the science models that we put into production, so on and so forth, machine learning. But I think where my interests really lie is in understanding the business problem and then converting that into technical requirements. It's something I've always gravitated towards, and so on my team, we've got folks that lead the engineering teams themselves. And what I really love to do is work directly with our big business leaders, understand what they need, and then convert that into data architecture, finding the
Problem.
data, sourcing the data. How often do you need to refresh? How will we transform it? Data preparation, I think now more than ever in the age of generative AI models and machine learning is kind of the unsung hero of all of this to me, selfishly. And so that's where over the course of the last couple of years, working in this role, I've kind of really migrated towards the data preparation, the modeling, and doing whatever it takes to provide clean data to our research teams and all that jazz.
Well, what does that mean? Like you touched on Gen AI. Like, I mean, clearly this is something that's hot topic to say the least, right? Like, what does that mean from like a data architecture standpoint? Like, what needs to go into it? How is it different than the way we've done things for the past 15 years or so?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and I'll resist going off on this and talking all day. But
I mean,
and by the way, so you guys both, I'm sure you both know this, it's evolving so quickly.
yeah.
So what's important for data modeling now is different than it was when ChatGPT first came out, and most of my opinions are going to be based on my experience preparing data for LLMs to interpret. Engineers use prompts and they pull data from our resources, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I've seen, especially in the sense of using an LLM to sort of have like a natural language conversation with data. What you need now is you need clean code, you need annotated code, and you need to go beyond just normalized data sets. You need clear data definitions. And all of this is required to sort of teach the LLM what you're doing, right? So in the past 15 years ago, Scott, you're a research scientist. Maybe you come to me and you say, hey, I need these 5 data points.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, okay, well, do you want them, over the course of the last 3 years? Maybe you're tracking trends. And you say, sure. So I give you 5 columns and I give you 100,000 rows, whatever that looks like. You understand the mental model on your own. You know what the data points are, you know what the column headers mean. Maybe we've got a wiki page or something and you can look through this data. We're in the position now to where we need to be able to tell an LLM what exactly is in those columns and rows out the gate so that it can immediately reference them to solve larger problems. So in this case, I'm going to have a code repository that says this line of code pulls in these different date and time series. This line of code is going to pull in these various attributes. I want a data dictionary that very clearly defines all of our attributes and all of our metrics, and it gives those definitions. And the more information you provide, the more annotation that exists in your data during that preparation. That's what's gonna teach your LLM and allow it to generate insights for you.
That makes a lot of sense. We've seen like posts by Ethan Mollick. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Hutch, but he's like what is he, Cole? Is he like a professor at Penn, or where is he?
He's a professor at Wharton. Yeah.
Wharton, but he'll describe like here, hey, ChatGPT 4.0 or whatever. Here's the sort of analysis that I want run, and it'll spit out some results, which, hey, super cool. It can run regressions. It can do all sorts of cool stuff. And I think Cole brought this article a few weeks ago. That's fantastic if you have, 5 variables. Super easy to do, but like in a massive organization, you got thousands of tables and millions of data points. It becomes a whole lot different problem than just run this analysis for me and we're off to the races, right?
The biggest challenge that I see with the data modeling and the architecture is using modern data lake capabilities and just ensuring that all of your warehouses have all the information that an LLM needs to interpret that information. But Cole, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there a gap in the complexity of the data architecture between building one of these models, let's just say for your own purposes to do your own research internally, and building something that needs to get put into production that other people will be using after the fact? Like, what's the delta there?
Oh, geez. I mean, I think the delta is monumental. I think the delta is monumental because in the latter, you're looking to support an unspecified number of use cases. It could be infinite. Whereas the former, you've probably you guys likely have a specific strategy, specific number of research studies or use cases you want to support, and you go from there. Building that modern data lake that's annotated and tagged and has the information you need to allow for broad research across nearly infinite use cases and all the attributes that exist in a large company. It's something we're looking at doing, on our own, but gosh, it's a tall order, Cole. Yeah. It's a tall order.
Well, let me ask you a really practical question then. Like, how do you, because presumably because of the explosion of the amount of things that you could ask for, it truly does get close to infinity or at infinity.
Yeah.
How do you get people practically to narrow down what this tool is capable of doing? Like, do you say, hey, just ask it about oranges? Anything you ask it about oranges, we're great. But
we're really accurate with fruit.
Yeah.
Oranges specifically.
Fruit-based model. Like, how do you get people to know what it's good at and know what it's not good at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in a large organization, you really have to ask the right questions regarding the problems that you want solved. And that's not, I hate to sound cliche with that, but if you need a fruit-based model, you're going to have a specific series of attributes and data aggregations that you need. And once you identify those, then you go to work really making sure that they're clearly defined and explicitly available for an LLM to interpret so that you can, speak to your language via NLP. So it all starts with asking those very specific, narrow questions to your business leaders. What problems are you trying to solve? Blah, blah, blah. Kind of like the classics. And then taking it a step further. So, yeah.
Everything seems to boil down to like garbage in, garbage out at the end of the day, right? Like, you're only as good as the data that goes in. And if you want to learn about bananas or something like that, if you want to continue the metaphor, well, now we're starting to extrapolate beyond our means.
Well, I'll give you one more quick example that I think you guys could relate to. In a large organization, one of the things that you're looking at is attrition all the time.
Yeah.
And let's say you want an LLM to help you figure out what is driving attrition or what might be driving attrition or what is like attrition adjacent, if you will.
Yeah.
So you know that attrition is the problem. And from a people data perspective, how are you going to get at that problem using data? Well, you know when people attrit, that's one thing. So you get all that data in. Like, what are the days that people quit on? Like, what are the timestamps? Who were they? Where did they work when they quit? How long? What was their tenure when they quit? All that different stuff. So you want to get all that employee attribute data at the time of them quitting. But then you really have to use business context to think about what are the reasons that someone might quit. And that's kind of the fun part, because that's when you're looking across domains, you're looking across data. It's like, oh, geez, well, if someone moved 20 miles away and they can't use public transportation anymore, do they quit? Well, I don't know. So we put in employee address data. It's that business context is really critical too. So you start small and then you kind of expand, and then eventually you say, here's the scope, I'm done with it. Like, let's just dive in. We'll start answering some problems.
That really is the funnest part of data, right? Like being able to construct a story in your mind about like how the patterns actually emerge and being able to see it in the data. Oh, this person quit because they, now they have a 20-minute commute as opposed to a 5-minute commute or something like that.
I mean, that's really like, generating a theory and then testing it out empirically with data.
Mm-hmm.
And I even think about, like, I guess get back to what Hutch was saying is you really need that business context then to be codified into attributes in your data, and having even like timestamps associated with those attributes for when those catalyst conditions occurred that might eventually lead to the turnover. In preparation for this, Hutch, Scott had mentioned that you're not an IO psychologist, but that some of your background have been influenced in terms of how you think about data ingestion from an IO psychology lens. Can you talk about and does that relate to what we're talking about here?
It does. I think the IO psychology shenanigans that I participated in over the years helped me to create an opinion on how I should navigate building and telling data stories, and data stores, I suppose. So I'll give you guys a little bit of insight to answer your question, Cole. This was some time ago, but I was fortunate enough to do about a year working with some IO psychologists on pre-hire assessments. So you have someone take a test, like a cultural assessment or otherwise. You have someone take a test before they come on board, and the hypothesis was that if you hire the right people, this is actually a perfect example. The hypothesis was that if you hire the right people, you lose less people during the hiring process, after you make an offer, and your attrition slows post-hire. So if you think your recruiting funnel, an assessment's going to block a whole bunch of people out at the very beginning, but the hypothesis was that the people who really want to make it through will stay through the process, and then they'll stay at the job longer, like reduce attrition. And so you guys can only imagine like the number of attributes from the recruiting process and the funnel data, like the recruiting funnel data, and then all of the different sort of attrition related attributes and timestamps. Post day one. There's a big problem to solve, but I digress. So I worked with IO psychologists, and they were responsible for doing the surveying, helping to build all of those like adjustable parameters for the assessment, doing the scoring and the weighting, and then we had a third party front end developer who would basically take all of those IO psychology inputs, and they'd create like the cool little game or whatever that people would play as part of the application. And so I'll give you guys a caveat. When I joined that team, I hardly knew what an API was. And so I'm cutting my teeth on not just data management, but Salesforce workflows and IO psychology. I have no idea what's going on, but the good IO psychologists that I worked with stuck with me and let me spread my wings. So that's kind of how I cut my teeth on this whole thing, honestly.
Because you're the personality guy. You're the only one that will actually talk to people.
Well, it's because I let IO psychologists are all mad, and so I let them sit at their whiteboard and write out all the crazy stuff. And I was like, oh yeah. And after about 6 months, I actually understood what they were saying. And they never knew that I had no idea. They totally knew I had no idea.
Well, I mean, like you say, you cut your teeth. Like, did you always want to be a, I don't know, product manager? Like, did you start out somewhere else?
I had an affinity towards the technical side of people data systems.
Yeah,
And I started just doing HR work. When I got out of school, I just went to work HR in a warehouse with Amazon.
really.
And
That's
then after a while, I just kind of fell into this.
like seriously, like ground level, like HR in a what fulfillment center?
Yeah. So I spent 4.5 years doing new hire orientation
Really?
and employee relations investigations. If you guys can imagine that.
Those are my favorite people to talk to. They got all the good stories.
Yeah. Man,
Yeah.
man, you're an inspiration. They should put you in like the recruiting videos for people like, look at what somebody can do when you come in on the ground floor like Hutch.
I know. I was a lifeguard before then. There's a lot of good self-deprecating jokes here, Cole, that the podcast won't be long enough for me to tell all of them. But yeah, I worked in the warehouse, effectively sat on the shop floor and answered employee questions for a good 4.5 years. And then I had my checklist of professional things I wanted to accomplish. And I was fortunate enough to have been hired in an organization large enough to be able to pursue most of those things, and here I am today.
Well, how'd you get? I mean, I think you're glossing over some like core stuff. Like, how'd you get from like the warehouse to now? Like, what they have you doing?
Okay, I'll give you guys a quick question or a quick story rather. So when I was in the warehouses, I used to work with time and attendance systems, and that was something that for me was really fascinating, and not just the management of time and attendance, because I think that's really important. It's hypercritical that you get that right for people. Like paying people correctly is the number one
Yeah.
most important thing you could do. But for some reason, I really, really enjoyed learning about the rules and systems behind time and attendance. I thought it was really fascinating. And long story short, over the course of my time working in the warehouses, I built relationships with the teams that worked on those tools, and then ultimately I landed an international assignment to help roll out one of those tools to one of our new launches in Eastern Europe.
Oh wow.
And that was kind of the catalyst for me to move into people systems and people data. Working over there, I spent all of my time really diving into the back end of our time and attendance systems, focusing on scheduling, like the rules based systems that existed behind that, all the scheduling modules, etc. And when I was done, I was like, okay, I'm not going back to the warehouse after this. So I was very fortunate to
You
find
can't make
I've seen the golden
yeah.
golden arches over there.
I was like, I went to the mothership. I moved up to Seattle, and that was when I got to join a PMO focused on HR technology, and the rest really is history. So like the following 6 or so years after that, I was fortunate to launch a couple of products across different domains within recruiting and the employee life cycle, and now I'm focused primarily just on the data, just on the data.
Did you ever meet Bezos? I mean, you've been around for a while.
I did.
You really?
I met Bezos. I shook the man's hand. I was awarded a thing for one of the products. I got an award for that, and
Fair
that was
enough.
up in Seattle. And so I did get to shake him. I was terrified, frankly. I was like way over here. I didn't want to get too close, but it was very cool.
You
It was
didn't
very cool.
dab him up or blow him up. Be like, boom.
Like a dab? No, I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah, yeah,
dab.
yeah.
Dab on stage. No dabbing. But yeah, it was a great. It was a great experience. I've been very fortunate to kind of like get to pursue these different technological interests and passions. And where I am right now with the people data, I think I'd like to stick around for a while because I find it very fascinating.
Well, then there's the phases of Bezos. So is this Bezos hair Bezos? Is this bald
Oh, yeah.
Bezos who's not buff yet? Or is it buff Bezos?
It's Buff Bezos. It was Buff Bezos. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good version of Bezos.
I mean, my favorite personally, but that's just me.
Is the new and improved, upgraded version. Well, Hutch, you want to do some confusion matrix with us?
Let's do it.
The confusion matrix. Real quick, we wanted to say thanks again to One Model, the AI and people analytics pioneer, for sponsoring the episode. And now back to the confusion matrix.
So, how does this work? This is a new session, right? New section.
This is new. So like I'm gonna ask you 5 questions. I mean, we can just go around table. I mean, it's just conversation starters. All it really is.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. I got a list of these. I kind of keep track. What are you obsessed with right now? Are you obsessed with anything?
So, what am I obsessed with right now? Oh, jeez. Oh, I'm in a cooking phase right now, guys. I'm in a cooking phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you cooking?
So I'm in a cooking phase. I got some new pans. I've been really into braising recently. I know that sounds like very odd, but I've been into braising.
What is braising?
So braising is going to be when you slow cook meat in water
Okay.
over like an extended period of time. So I braised short ribs for the first time in my life, like
Oh, that's good eating right
the
there.
other week, and that was super duper good. Braising and stews I've been into quite a bit. This all started with smoking meats outside when I moved to Oklahoma. But yeah, I would say that's kind of what I've been into recently.
So
Yeah.
brazen of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're on fire with these puns today.
Yeah.
Are you obsessed with anything right now, Cole? Like you always got something going on.
Seriously, I've been watching a lot of these like documentaries about like athletes. I watched the one on sprinters. I rewatched the Michael Jordan one again. I watch that one like once a year. I just love that one. And then I've been watching the one about David Beckham. So I guess you could say like I'm obsessed with other people who are great at things, just not myself.
Sports documentaries, this sort of thing.
Yeah. I've been looking for that motivation for like when I watch them, I'm like, yeah, I can go accomplish something amazing. I don't know. I don't know if that's how everybody feels.
I think what comes across in the Jordan documentary is just like what a competitive dude. Like I don't even know what kind of distribution. He's not even on the distribution. It's like Golubowski. Like it's like a totally different animal. His level of competitiveness.
Well, and what you find is all of these athletes have like psychotic parents. and so
Tiger Woods, where like there's so driven.
So even in the David Beckham one, like there's this point in his life where he like really messes up in the World Cup, and just for almost a year, everyone is booing him. Even his home crowds are booing him.
I think it's his parents.
No, this is the point. Is he said, "Oh yeah, it never affected me because how hard my dad was on me when I was a kid, and so the only thing that scares me is my dad." I'm like, God, that's intense. Oh my gosh.
I think he came into. He played for Arsenal, I believe, like at the age of like 17. It'd be unreal. Man U.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream that sticks with you? This sort of things I saw all week.
Do you have a dream that sticks with you? These are the real heavy hitter questions. You guys will have to edit out these answers.
I just want to know more about Hutch, man.
A dream that sticks with me. I've always wanted to live abroad for an extended period of time. I wouldn't say that's a dream necessarily. I did Japanese for international business in school when I was a wee lad, and I've returned a few times. I've really enjoyed that. I think I'd like to spend some time maybe in Eastern Asia or Southeastern Asia for a while.
You're taking this in a different direction than I thought you would. I meant like a Freudian dream, like you're in a dream state while sleeping, but
like an esoteric sort of.
Like you're talking about like things you actually want to accomplish, like bucket list sort of things.
Yeah, sure.
Perfectly acceptable. Yeah.
Okay, wait. Repeat the question, Scott. Repeat the question.
Do you have a dream that sticks with you? Like, have you ever like woken up and be like, "Holy cow, that's a dream"? Like you think about it.
Oh, an actual dream that sticks with me. Yes, I have flying. Okay, Yes, flying dreams all the time.
You can fly in your dreams? Can like control you?
I
I've
want to
never
know
done
if you
that.
guys have these as well. Yes, I always have flying dreams, and they always do the same thing where I'm falling, and then I remember that I can fly, and then I fly. I have these often.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
I wish
Yeah.
I knew more about dream analysis so I could like deconstruct what that means, but I don't know anything. So
Yeah.
I think it was Freud that says if you talk about that, you're really fucking dumb. Really fucking boring is the quote. Yeah.
is that it?
What about y'all? What are y'all's recurring dreams? Safe for work recurring dreams, of course.
Reoccurring dreams. I get the dream where, you know, I didn't go to class all semester and all of a sudden I show up on finals day and like I don't even know where the classroom is. And I go in and like they're like WTF, this sort of thing. When it's a little personal, but when I was 14, my father passed away, and like 2 days later, I had a dream that like I got up from my bedroom and walked down the hallway and went to the front door, and he was there, and I was like, "Why did you leave?" And he's like, "I didn't leave. Don't worry, I'm still here." And I woke up, and that was
Yeah.
it. And that's been like really personally effective for me. Yeah.
You've
That
had
is
that
so
dream several
wild.
times?
No, just the one time.
Just once,
Just
okay.
the one time.
That's so wild. I had I don't even know if I can share it. Like when my son was born, I had this dream. I can't even share it. I'm sorry. I'm start crying. It was like a very meaningful experience I had. When like about a dream where my grandparents who all passed away
Yeah.
came back to me in the dream and told us it was all gonna be okay. And I was like, oh man, I'm like
Very,
crying right now.
very similar dream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Very
wild.
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just fly in my dreams, so yeah, that's it. Fly. I have missed class before in my dreams, though, so that is true.
I had the one where they're gonna revoke my PhD because they had a miscalculation on the comprehensive exam, and like you wake up like, is that real?
Yeah, that's a nightmare. I think you're mistaking a dream for a nightmare.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. I was at a party like a few weeks ago, and like they broke out the board games, which I can't really stand board games. But are you competitive with board games?
With board games, no,
Yeah.
no, not in the least.
Yeah,
So, I really don't like it when people don't follow the rules on board games. Drives me crazy. These cheaters on board games drive me nuts.
that's like well like well I mean obviously if you're like playing I don't know Sorry or something like that, someone's like skipping spaces to get ahead, this sort of thing.
Yeah. There's like in Monopoly, they're like stealing money. Like, oh yeah, I got
Well,
way
that's
more. It's
true.
like you were about to run out of money. What are you talking about?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the worst.
Yeah.
I will like just like not care about the rules, and to the point where like put my own team in a quandary, right? And like be like, hey, what you can't be like show me your cards. Like, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if you see my cards. I don't want to play this game anymore anyway. It doesn't matter.
Some of the games, the rules are very complex as well. And so, Cole, I've been in situations where I wasn't trying to cheat. I just simply did not fully grasp the rules. And
Oh, I thought I could just like advance to the end of the game of life. Oh, I'm so sorry.
sure.
Does this mean I won? Did I win?
Yeah, look at me. I
Is
won.
that bad? Yeah.
Here we'll cut it short. This is more of a like internal question. You know, do you have a problem feeling proud?
A problem feeling proud.
Yeah, like
Wow,
do you feel
That's getting
pride?
intense today.
Yeah. This is what I've been thinking about all week. It's been a rough week.
You know,
What are your key insecurities, Michael? Can you share them with us, please?
Yeah.
Well, no, like it's not insecurities as much as like, hey, you did this great work. Do you feel proud of that work? Do you feel proud in like sharing it with other folks and like talking about it?
I don't have a problem feeling proud. Typically,
Yeah.
I will say, you know, I think oftentimes, since you asked me a deep question, I'll give you a deep response.
I love it.
I think oftentimes I don't do a good job of feeling proud for long enough.
Oh,
and like appreciating my own
yeah.
accomplishments or good work for the amount of time that is warranted just based solely off of like how much effort I put into it. I think it's really easy to be like, that was cool, on to the next thing. So like, and the next thing you just get shit on inevitably for a period of time. But yeah, I think I'm good at feeling proud, but I don't think I'm good at feeling proud enough and for long enough,
I like the answer.
if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I always say like you got to give yourself some grace first, and it's like if you're like one of the people that's like it was really intense leading up to the accomplishment, but after the accomplishment, you're like, well, I guess it's time to move on. It's like, no, you got to give yourself some grace,
Yeah.
like you worked real hard.
Yeah. It's a lesson that's not, I think I've learned it and yet I haven't retained it. Maybe I'll dream about going to that class or something, but I'll
Maybe
do my best.
that's wild. Well, you want to do some? Is it nerdery time, or do you have one more for us, Scott?
I mean, like, I do have one more here. We'll just kick it. Why not? What do you think about Disney people? People that go to like Disney World, no kids, just having a good old time at Disney.
I'm not going to judge. I'm not someone who does it myself. I can see why. I can see why it would bring you joy. I can. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it's
get it. I get
yeah,
it.
it's no different than going to I've been to Japan 3 times now.
Really?
Yeah, I've gone twice in the last like 4 years. And I just like going. I like trying to practice my language skills, and I appreciate some of the like unique features in Japan. I've taken friends there, and to me, that's no different than Disney World, I guess.
Did you go to Tokyo Disney?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I'm not really a Disney. Look, okay. Love Toy Story. I think Toy Story
I don't
3
even
was
think Toy Story
probably.
was Disney. I think that's Pixar. Well, Pixar is
Is it the
Disney. Yeah,
same? I don't know
yeah,
anymore.
They are the
yeah,
same, guys. Clearly,
yeah.
you guys haven't gone to Disney recently.
I haven't been to Disney. Shit, long.
I've never been.
So here, I'll tell you guys a quick story on this, since you didn't ask, and maybe this plays into why I'm not a Disney adult. I went to Disney World once, and it's one of my earliest memories. So I don't know when you guys started having memories, but mine was probably like 5-ish, maybe
Yeah.
4, like between 4 and 6. And when I was between 4 and 6, we went to Disney World, and the plane got struck by lightning. And I'll never forget it because like the lights were flickering. And then the only other thing I remember is crying on the Tower of Terror ride. And like those are some of my earliest memories. So take that as you will.
A very formative experience.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a trip.
Yeah.
Wow,
You're giving me like a flashbulb memory of being like knocked around on the Space Mountain. Like the only time I went when I was, 6 or whatever.
Yeah. Did they shut that down?
I have no idea.
Space Mountain still, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like flashbulb memories like Epcot too, the big geodesic dome thing, whatever it is.
Yeah. I've never been to Disney, but the people who know me well know that my number one pet peeve on earth is standing in line. And this might be the worst place on earth for that pet peeve. Unless you get those express passes, which they like, my understanding is they mark up the price an insane amount to really gouge you for them.
Yeah.
It really is insidious, right? Like, oh yeah, like you come in the park, but you really can't ride anything unless you pay triple the cost to come in.
The stand in line thing it's so true. And when I travel internationally, if it's not work related, I will go whatever the worst off season time is, even if it's when it rains or snows, just to avoid lines and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I think we're at nerdery time.
The nerdery.
Where you want to go?
Let's do since it's sort of related to what we've been talking about memories. Do you want to do the one on false memories?
So this is a article by I can't read, but it's called Implanting Rich Autobiographical False Memories. So, Implanting Rich Autobiographical False Memories, meta-analysis for forensic practice and judicial judgment making. So, essentially, what they did is they performed meta-analysis on implanting false memories, and they found large effects suggesting that false memories can be implanted. The probability of a false memory being implanted significantly higher for experienced events versus false narratives or doctored photos. So that's really crazy right there. That if you actually experiencing something, you're going to be more likely to have a false memory implanted in it. And they found essentially the same effects for kids and adults across the board. So, I mean, get out your like CIA toolkit, man. Like you can do the false memory implantation, especially if it's for experienced events.
I have a clarifying question. When they say experienced events, so are they saying like if I went to Disney World, it's much easier to convince me that I cried on the Tower of Terror than if I didn't go to Disney World?
That's the way like I interpret that as well. Yeah, like 3 weeks from now, I would think that Cole wore a red shirt today, or in fact, he's wearing a blue shirt or something like that.
Yeah, I think what it's telling you, Hutch, is that you know that memory you had about the formative experience at Disney World? Yeah,
Yeah.
never happened the way you thought it did. Sorry, man. I hate to break it to you. Never happened.
You would never know that you had a false memory either, right? You could have someone tell you that, yeah, you definitely did not do what you said, and you would never know. But it is so shocking, these moments. Like I was at a restaurant the other day, and someone ordered a eggplant parmesan, and they brought her an eggplant parmesan, and she said, "No, I ordered a chicken parmesan," and the whole table said, "No, you definitely ordered this." She's like, "Oh, damn, okay."
That's just somebody being rude. Like, come on. Will you not even have the courtesy to remember your order? Like, like, because they were gonna put it on that poor waiter or waitress if people hadn't stepped up. You know, they were gonna like really accost them probably.
Yeah.
Man, that's pretty strong for a missed order or what have you.
Yeah, exactly.
I also remember, kind of like you were talking about, Hutch. Like, when do you first start having memories? I remember this girl telling me that she remembered being a baby and just like yawning over and over. It's like I don't know if this is true, man. You know?
I will give you a funny story. My sister. So I have one sister, and she's a kid, and I was eating dinner with them. This was last year. They live in north of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And I asked my niece, who is 5, if she could remember something that happened when she was 3, and she told me yes. She also said, "Yes, I remember everything." But my sister maintains that she remembers being a baby as well, which is interesting. She does have photographic memory though, so maybe this is a thing that like works with your memory. I don't
Would it
know
be
how
a
it works.
blessing or a curse, like having photographic memory, right? Like there's certain people that you could be like, "Oh, what'd you do on April 2nd, 2021?" Be like, I went to the store and like I went to work and like I was working on this project. But I'm like, your brain would be filled with so much like minutia,
Yeah,
right?
how do you file through it? I don't know.
Maybe it's all false memories too.
It's oh
Yeah.
no.
You didn't do any of that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is you just get used to it, you know, because it's all you ever know. It's like, does a hound dog who can smell like 10,000 times better than a human, do they hate smelling? It's like, no, they're used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like that. This is not the same, but like attention blindness, where like, oh, they'll show you these videos in psych class of like a bear dancing through a group of people that are like throwing a ball back and forth, and your task is to count how many times the ball goes back and forth, and you never even see the bear, right? I think we do a lot of this sort of stuff with memory as well. I'd love to do like a brush up on actual memory processes, but like you encode certain things that are salient to you, and like you kind of let other things just go by the wayside, which is where I think
Yeah.
your brain fills in the gaps of, what actually happened at the party. Here's the sort of things I saw. Did it actually happen or not?
Memory's
Well,
fascinating. Memory's
It
so
is.
fascinating. I have such I have such specific memories at random times, and there's no reason why they stick out. And then I try to remember a single class in college, and I can't. I
Yeah.
remember maybe 2 or 3 classes I went to in my undergrad in their entirety. And everything else is not class related.
Or you remember all the lyrics to like a song you listened to when you're 14, but like can't remember your coworker's name that you sit next to every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, why can I sing Ludacris's "Roll Out"? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know my mom's phone number or whatever. I know my mom's phone number. That's just an example.
I don't know if I know anybody's phone number besides my own. Like, it'd be hard.
Yeah, I can still remember my friend's phone number from like the first grade. But I don't
Wow.
know. Like, you could give me somebody's phone number right now, and 5 seconds from now, I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Kids
Yeah.
are amazing at that too, right? I mean, where they just kind of pick up on things.
I don't know
Yeah.
if kids know phone numbers anymore. Like, we may know
Oh,
more
there's
phone
no
numbers
way.
than children do.
Yeah, there would be no reason to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd go as far as called a study, but they were essentially showing kids like how would you signal to somebody else that you're using a phone? Like we all may like do like the banana to the ear sort of phone, but for them it's like touching their palm. Like that's how you dial a phone, right? That's how you use the phone.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah,
Interesting.
Not
but it's
this.
kind of like you have the little icon to save stuff, and it's a floppy disk,
Yeah.
and kids don't even know what that is. It's just the save icon.
Yeah.
It's like that.
It's like you got a
Oh,
3D.
do you think that's because like phone calls are just not nearly as common as texting? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess you would hold the phone differently too. You wouldn't hold it kind of the same way. You kind of hold it flat to your face, right?
Yeah, I almost never hold because I still do phone calls. Obviously, I'm not a caveman, but when I do phone calls, I almost never take them that I'm not on speakerphone. Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I never put it by my ear either. And I guess what would kids do there? Is it just the hand signal of like yelling into your hand? Is that
Yeah,
the signal?
essentially. Yeah, I guess you just be
Yeah,
like hold it up to your face.
Yelling into
yeah,
the void really is what it is, which is at most phone calls, anyways.
yeah. That's basically it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of memories and the relationship to like happiness, we got this next article about life satisfaction. So this was from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, came out in February this year. It says most people's life satisfaction matches their personality traits. True correlations and multi-rater, multi-sample data. And so, just to kind of read between the lines here, I think some researchers in the past have tried to show the relationship between people's personality traits and whether or not they're satisfied in life. But it was always subject to criticism because folks would say, well, that was just, it suffered from common method bias, or it was just a single instance of asking somebody. And so it wouldn't necessarily be replicable. And so, again, they measured over multiple traits using multiple ratings and multiple samples of the same data. And what they found was the things that were most correlated via like a zero 0.8 to 0.9 correlation, which is huge, to life satisfaction were emotional stability, extroversion, and conscientiousness. Oh no, those were 0.3 to 0.5. Sorry. The accuracy of the measure of life satisfaction itself was 0.8 to 0.9, which is good. So it's a reliable construct. And then what they also found is that the things most associated with low life satisfaction were feeling misunderstood, being unexcited, indecisive, envious, bored, used, unable, and unrewarded, all with relationships between 0.4 and 0.7 with low life satisfaction, which basically sounded somewhat like the seven dwarves or the seven deadly sins or something like that. And then the other kind of interesting note was that openness and agreeableness weren't related really much at all to life satisfaction, but basically what they found is that, satisfaction is usually shaped by the same relatively stable factors that shape personality traits more broadly. So really, if you're satisfied in life, it might not be your circumstances. It's probably just mostly your personality. What did you guys think about this?
I I I was torn. To me, it's a chicken or the egg problem, but
In
you know,
what
like
way?
if you hold on, let me pull it up. So if you oh no, my link, there we go. Like your life satisfaction and your personality traits. Do you end up with those personality traits because you've had like a generally dissatisfied in life, or vice versa? Like it's kind of difficult to interpret.
I kind of took it a different way. Like if you go through each of these, like conscientiousness, extroversion, emotional stability, if you have low conscientiousness, like say like you forget where you put your keys in the morning, or like you forgot to take the trash out, or you forgot to pay the bills, you're not going to be happy. Extroversion, like I mean, this is like pure like network analysis. Like you get joy from like just being social. It's like kind of like we evolved to be kind of social beings in general. And emotional stability, people that are just like a neurotic mess are like almost by definition not gonna be happy, right? At least that's the way I would take it. So I think I think it makes perfect sense, like that these sort of like collective behaviors that go into it would relate to your satisfaction. You kind of touched on it earlier, Cole, but like I'd love to see how like the subscales, the specific behaviors that people engage in really relate, because the pantheon of like conscientiousness, not everything would relate to a specific outcome, but I think overall it definitely makes sense. It definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. They pointed out the subscales that were related to low life satisfaction, but they didn't point out the subscales that were related to high life satisfaction, which I
Mm.
thought was like an interesting kind of asymmetry.
In agreeableness, I mean, that makes sense that it would have very little relationship. Apparently, it does do very well in work success on the job.
Mhm.
I could see
Being,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Which other one am I missing? Openness. I mean,
Openness.
that kind of makes sense. You'd expect it to probably be a little bit higher.
Yeah,
Uh,
probably cuts both ways. Yeah.
Man, I've seen some neurotic shit at the office though. This is forever ago, but this guy, kind of like a nervous dude. Like one day we got this department wide email. This is years ago. Um, and he was like, "Why are someone messing with my salad? Like you put like hot shit in my salad and like spiked my salad in the office." And like it was like, oh man, that's really sad that someone like bullied this guy, right? And like he was really upset, and you kind of feel for people this way. And like he sent like a sheepish email, maybe like 2 hours later. It's like, sorry, my wife put peppers in the salad, and it was really like a self-inflicted wound.
I remember at a prior organization, this was years ago. I don't really remember the specifics, but there was this person who thought they were emailing like an HR inbox
Oh
with like
no!
this really personal
Oh
thing, but they had
no!
sent it to
Oh no.
HR all. And so it went to everybody in HR in the entire company globally about this like really personal situation. I was like, oh my God, if I was that person, I would have been so mortified. Uh,
I'm sure you've seen some crazy shit, Hutch.
We've seen a few scenarios like that in the field for sure, in the warehouses.
Yeah.
Like
Don't
over
get in trouble. Don't get in trouble.
no, no. I was actually just gonna reference the email storms that happen and how
Oh
much I love
yeah.
them. I've never kicked off an email storm, but by God, when you get a good one, like it makes your month. You know what I mean?
Just
And
everyone replying all for no reason.
I hope that whoever initiated that email storm has one of the good personality traits to survive an email storm. Openness and agreeability, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. If you're misunderstood, you're gonna have a bad day once you click send.
How small must you feel to see like an email storm kicked off? Like you reply all to like the all HR inbox or whatever it is, and then people start replying all to your message like, I'm on this thread too, or like, hey, will someone please take me off this thread? And like
Yeah.
each email just like compounds the problem. Oh, it must be awful.
It's so perfect if you really think about it.
It's amazing.
It's just the gift that keeps on giving. Uh,
There's a video. Oh, I don't know if I can share it, but there's someone in the email storm like tried to promote their band, like, hey, come out to the show tonight. Come see us perform.
talk about guerrilla marketing tactics.
Right?
Yeah. The thread's moving so fast, no one will see me post this.
Yeah,
Type of deal.
for real. Like,
I think though, after like 5, 6, maybe even 10 emails, or up until like a certain point, if you are the stormer, like if you initiated the storm inadvertently, you probably want it to go crazy. Because if it's sub 100, someone might see who kicked it off. But if it's over 100, you're safe. Like no one will know of your crimes.
apparently they is kind of a network analysis component too, where like they break off into separate email storms and like kind of spin off into other like subgenre storms
Yep.
where people like start sub emailing each other,
It's like
or
all for one for all.
you start adding more people to the storm too. Just start adding people.
Have them weigh in. Well, do you want to do the last nerdy article, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a twofer, really. So they're both about replication of psychological studies. So how do psychology researchers interpret results of multiple replication studies? So so they explored how researchers interpret these with varying statistical significance. Overall, the number of significant results related to the researcher's belief in the underlying theory, which makes sense. You see more positive results or more significant results, you're going to believe in a theory more. Researchers value direct replications more than conceptual replications, which makes total sense. Like, let's do that. However, sort of a bad note, direct replications are less likely to get published. People's judgment tend to be influenced by initially presented values. So back to that sort of Bayesian prior controversy sort of thing. And people's belief in theory did not differ when presented with pre-registered or non-pre-registered studies, suggesting that they don't really think much about p-hacking. You know, if they suspect it, don't really care much anyway.
I'll be honest. I want to hear about the second one. The second one, in addition to the first one, was what got me the most excited.
Okay.
Do you mind teeing it up too? Because like that one was fantastic.
Yeah. So this is from Brian. Well, he's the third author, Brian Uzi, who's a personal hero of mine. Maybe he'll join the pod someday. But a discipline-wide investigation of the replicability. Say it for me, somebody.
Replicability.
Thank you, guys, of psychology papers over the past 2 decades. So what they did is essentially used ML to scan the text of all psychology papers published in the top journals for the last 20 years and identified from the text which studies were most likely to be replicated. And what they found overall is the replication rates differed by subfield. So one overall replication rate is not sufficient to describe overall studies that might be replicated. And experimental studies replicate at a lower rate in psychology, which is really worrisome for the field, because this is where we really start understanding if our effects are true, right? We can actually replicate that data.
That was the thing. That's why I wanted you to bring that up. That just floored me. Like if you would have asked me 100 times what would replicate more, true experiments or non-experimental data, I would say true experiments every time. And they show this chart because they break down developmental psychology, social psychology, cognitive psychology, clinical psychology, organizational psychology, and personality psychology. And in every single one, experiments are less likely to replicate than non-experimental data. and I want to make a quick plug here for organizational psychology, actually has the highest replicability rate amongst all these, with development and social psychologies having the lowest amongst the two. And so this is just fascinating.
Well, it's harder to do an experiment, right? You gotta get your like control samples and your experimental samples, and like somehow battle all the threats to validity, etc. I mean,
Yeah, that's so wild, though. I mean, like if you combine these two articles, it's basically talking about. We've talked about this before. That there's like this system of incentives that is really what it's not any individual actors that are acting poorly, generally speaking. I mean, there are bad actors, but it's the system of incentives that are really pushing things off. And so if you don't have normative methods for publishing replications, and then like even like the first article is talking about how people even misinterpret the results of a replication.
yeah,
Like they're not even understanding the statistics of what the replication is saying. And then you get into these issues of like whole disciplines are, I mean, I thought it was interesting. The one thing I was curious about on the second article was they used a machine learning model to predict the likelihood of replication. And then using that same model to score a bunch of other studies, is there potentially flaws in that machine learning model that are unaccounted for here? Because it's not saying that we know these studies are replicated, it's just saying we predict that these studies won't be replicated.
yeah. Evidently, these are a neural network to identify what's it called, cosine similarity or whatever. But I mean, like, other than I mean, neural networks are going to be black box to the nth degree, right? It's going to be really hard to identify what's going on, what the computer's actually seeing in there.
Did you hear the other funny point at the end of the second one? Contrary to the ideal that media attention should cover replicable research, we find that media attention is positively related to the
Yes,
likelihood of replication failure.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So if something's in the news, that means it's probably not going to replicate.
What? Well, I mean, like, once again, you go back to the incentives of what gets you, what gets you funding, what gets you published. It's these novel findings that are like big shocking values at the end of it, and perhaps you get like big effect sizes or something like that. But that's probably not the norm. This is where you got to go like Kep's trim and fill method, where like only the positive results are published, everything else just kind of falls away. But that's not representative of the entire sample that you'd expect.
I mean, this stuff used to really piss me off. I'll be honest with you. It was like it started with like all like the Brian Nosek and the Open Science Project, and power poses weren't real, and what is it? Like identity threat or whatever it's called wasn't real, and all these other findings. And then it was the lady at Harvard who was a researcher on lying, and then you found out that she lied about all of her research. And then it was the president of Harvard and the president of Stanford, who are both laid off for for different reasons. And it's just like now it's just so pervasive. I'm not even mad about it anymore. I'm just like, wow, this is. I mean, we got to start over again.
Are you saying power posing is not real? So I've been. Which one is it, Cole?
So I actually looked into this one at one point. So power posing has no effect. It is any act of physical exercise will actually prepare you more for feeling good, like building your confidence. So if by posing, like let's say you're sitting down for 2 hours and then you stand up for the first time, yeah, you're probably going to do better, but it's because you stood up, not because you power posed. Does that make sense?
It does. It's interesting because there's a lot of research coming out about like exercise snacks, and I don't know if you guys read any of kind of the health and wellness research, but exercise snacks is a new one where every 45 minutes or an hour you get up and you do something. Maybe you do 10 air squats or what have you. But what I saw was that like getting up and doing 10 air squats had the same effect on your blood glucose as like walking for 30 minutes.
So not consuming something, but actually getting up and being physical. That's the snack.
Yeah, so it's an exercise snack, and it kind of goes to the power posing deal. If you get up and you're physically active just for a few minutes, it's going to give you a little bit of oomph. So I thought that was really interesting. These exercise snacks they're talking about.
I don't know. I may start power posing regularly.
I got to tell you guys, by the way,
I think we should do it now. Why are we not doing it now?
Like this?
Let's power pose together.
so
That was the weirdest moment on this pod ever.
I got to tell you guys. I'm not an IO psychologist, as you know, nor am I a P hacker, whatever that is. But when I
did the guy who doesn't know the rules to the board game and who's breaking the rules, you're probably a P hacker. You just don't know it.
Well, fake it till you make it, Cole. But so going back to the IO psychology work, one of the things that I learned, and this wasn't in reference to any particular product, if somehow someone could trace that there, but one of the psychologists that I work with, who I learned a lot from, she told me you can make the data say whatever you want. And I think this comes back to having unclean data in particular.
Yeah.
With really large organizations and really dirty data, it's impossible to replicate anything, like across the board, because the methods that you use as a psychologist to clean that data in the first place, Scott, you probably know more than anyone. You're not going to be able to ship your Python over to someone else and it make any sense, or your R code or what have you. And so she always told me, you can technically make the data say whatever you want it to say. And I was like, okay. And that was eye-opening when I learned that. And I think it directly pertains to these.
I mean, that's a really good example of just like not having clean data, right? Like, so
Yep.
in one case, you may just have like really noisy data, and it'll pop out like what we'll call it a positive result. You could try the exact same thing like a month later. It's essentially the same methods, a negative result of equal magnitude. But this is why having like great work like you do, Hutch, is so critical.
Yeah, one day I'll have great work like you do, Hutch. So I think this has been a ton of fun today, and I've enjoyed getting a chance to meet you. You have been a good sport, and I'm really appreciative of that, Hutch. So, any final words for Hutch, Scott?
Hutch, I can't wait to see you again when you come in town. If folks want to reach out to you, how can they get in touch?
Find me on LinkedIn, Michael Hutchins on LinkedIn, principal product manager, people analytics at Amazon. And hey, guys, if you ever want to dive into some more specifics on data modeling and cleaning for large language models, let me know. Be happy to come back. Unironically, my boss is messaging me right now. He probably wants to talk about those very things. So
if you want to dive into like the River Seine, don't do that though. I mean,
no. Hey, if we want to do a synchronized pooping though, like I'm not saying I'm not down.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Be careful what you ask for, Hutch. A bunch of people are going to reach out to you about it after this podcast launches. So
I know.
You've been listening to Directionally Correct, the People Analytics podcast with Cole and Scott. And today's guest, Michael Hutchins. Thanks for joining us, Michael.
Hey, see you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Directionally Correct is dedicated to you, our listeners, to help educate and entertain you on how to effectively do people analytics. By supporting this podcast, you are helping us continue to provide valuable insights and knowledge to our listeners. Please consider becoming a patron of the podcast. You can find the link to sign up in the show notes or at patron.podbean.com/directionallycorrect. Thanks for your support.